Welcome to the News Roundup, where I tell you what's been happening in the world of tabletop gaming. This week, it seems AI art has returned to the forefront. Let's find out who's been abusing it this time for the week of March 4th, 2024. As stated in the intro, AI art is returned to the forefront of board game discussion. Now, this is not the first time we've been talking about AI art and the controversies surrounding it. It's been used multiple times, once for a game's artwork in a Terraforming Mars spinoff, once for a convention of last year's Essen Spiel, and there was a Magic the Gathering ad which featured the actual art from cards that wasn't done by AI art, but the art of the ad itself was made through AI art. So this is something that comes up time again, and most of these times, it's not usually received very well. This time, we're actually going to be talking about a crowdfunding project from Awaken for a special edition of Puerto Rico 1897. The controversy comes from the AI art being spotted on the cover image of the box for the crowdfunding page. This has since been removed and replaced with a blurred image of the box from a previous version, basically a placeholder. Now, both the company that owns the game, Ravensburger, and Awaken Realms, the one running the campaign, have come out with statements, with Ravensburger stating they don't want any AI art, have told this to Awaken Realms, and Awaken Realms stating there will be no AI art in the final version of the game. Now, as I stated, while there are multiple different ways AI art has come out in the open in board gaming, there are two situations in particular I think are interesting to compare this to. One being the Magic the Gathering ad, and the other being the Terraforming Mars expansions. Now, for the Terraforming Mars, this was written on their campaign page. Yes, it was at the bottom, not up in the open where everyone's going to see, but it was there, and they basically said, when asked, yes, we're going to use it. Supposedly, if I recall, they said they were only training the AI using mostly art from their artists, but I cannot remember if that was ever confirmed. The Magic the Gathering one, on the other hand, was not done by Wizards of the Coast, but rather an ad agency that they hired to make the ad. It showed off cards that were real cards that were made with art from artists, not from AI art, but basically those images of those cards are placed in art that was generated from AI art. And the reason why I think these two are interesting to compare to this one is because, one, Magic the Gathering was an ad, and it was made with AI art, but the product they were showing off was the final art version, so to speak, of the cards. It wasn't using AI to generate what this card art might look like. While the other one was made completely using AI art, this board game, but it was stated to all be AI art. Here, I feel like we actually have a weird hybrid, where it was using AI art as a placeholder to show off what the game might look like, while not actually being part of the game itself. And I find that interesting because I wonder, because we show off prototypes all the time. That's the whole point of the crowdfunding projects. But with AI art, does that cross the line of false advertisement? And that's where I find this interesting. Like I said, that's why I compared it to the Magic the Gathering. It was an ad, but the ad itself did not AI art the product it was showing off. And to my knowledge, while just people not liking AI art had issues with the ad, I don't know if that actually crossed any kind of legal repercussions. Here, though, I'm curious, just because AI art is so new, if you AI art a product, maybe even if you just say it's a prototype, is that okay? Or do you have to actually show what a prototype actually is? Because for a lot of people, they won't recognize the AI art as the prototype. They'll assume that's what the box art will look like. So I wonder where that line is drawn, if that line is even been drawn yet. And this is one of those things that we're going to have to deal with AI art. But for now, like I said, this game will have no AI art in the final version. And similar to the Wizards of the Coast thing, you'll probably hear a lot of companies say that their final products will never use AI art. But it's become more and more apparent of where that line should be and how blurry it is when it comes to advertising products. Is it okay if you use AI art to show off what your product is hopefully going to look like? Or is it okay if it shows the real product, but everything around it is AI? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Continuing with crowdfunding, we're going to talk about the Altered TCG that just ended on Kickstarter. It recently broke the record for the highest TCG crowdfunding project on Kickstarter, coming close to $7 million. And I think a big reason for this is the new TCG has a bit of a interesting gimmick, not in terms of a gameplay gimmick, but rather how you collect the game. You see, all the cards come with a QR code, and once you open a pack with a card, you can scan those codes to add it into an app, and then through the app, you can order more copies of those cards. So you don't need to open multiple packs to try to get a full play set. Rather, as long as you open one, you can order them on demand in order to get whatever cards you need. You can also trade cards ownership through the app, meaning that once you have a full play set, you can give the card to someone else, sell it to them. However, for tournaments, you do have to prove you own every card in your deck. So that's great for kitchen top kind of play styles. Everyone can get their own cards. While unfortunately for tournaments, you do need to hold on to whatever cards you need. Still, this does break the usual TCG format of needing to buy lots and lots of packs and singles in order to get the full playset for whatever the meta strong decks are. It also means that if, let's say, a pack was to go out of print, people could still print a lot of these stronger cards and maybe just trade ownership when it comes to tournaments at the very least, if a card comes popular again. And that adds a whole interesting development. At least I don't think I'm here of like, how would that work? Selling it through an app? Do you sell the code or whatnot? It depends on how the product actually comes out. Regardless, congratulations for breaking the record. And I think that reason of people being able to not hunt as much for whatever is desirable. There are even cards that you can use to scan so you can print foil versions of cards. So you can now hunt down those. And it makes it so it rivals the usual cycle, so to speak, of how we get into TCG. The one big hurdle they have is it's all based on its own universe. That doesn't seem so bad until you look at how many other card games are made and try to break into the TCG marketplace. Only recently have the big three, the original Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, have actually had some competitors. So I now see people saying the big five. Those two new ones being One Piece and the Disney Lorcana game. We'll see whether Star Wars can make that six. But of the six I mentioned, 4 of them are definitely based on IPs. Yu-Gi-Oh! You could argue was built around the card game IP because not many people know about it before it was about a card game. And that leaves Magic the Gathering. And Magic the Gathering, while it's its own IP with its own things like Phyrexians and Slivers, is now bringing in a lot of other IPs through its Beyond universe, meaning it's still relying heavily now on established IPs. So I don't know how well Altered's going to be able to compete with these titans and whether it can bring people in. That all said, you don't need to be a part of the big five to still be popular. Flesh and Blood, which at least when it comes to heavy TCG players I've heard talk a lot about, just not a lot. And when it comes to large marketplaces, seems to still be doing just fine. And if its QR scanning method is able to be productive enough and financially viable enough for them to keep the card game going, that's still a win for its player base. So like I said, this only just closed up, so it'll be a while till we see it actually hit tables and store shelves. But it'll be really curious to see whether their new marketing and single mechanic is enough for them to break into the already heavily saturated and just consolidated trading card game marketplace. Game designer Maxine Juniper Newman is leaving Fantasy Flight after 11 years. She's worked on a ton of projects. 11 years, so obvious. But it will probably be most well known for co-designing the Arkham Horror card game, one of Fantasy Flight's largest games and definitely one of their biggest cash cows as well. Now, she said in a Twitter post the thank you for everyone she worked with and how much she's excited to continue working board gaming. And from it, at the very least, to me, it doesn't sound like this was like a firing or a bad split between her and the company. Something that part of me is a little worried about just because how much we've been talking about Asmodee and the Embracer Group and whether there's going to be another just huge firing that we've seen in basically just tons of other companies. It seems to be that she is just continuing on her adventure, one that will still continue to work with board gaming. She said she's very excited to design new games and is excited for you to hear more from her in the future. So while this is sad news for any Arkham Horror card game fans to see one of the creators leaving the project just after making the Scarlet Keys expansion, it doesn't mean we're going to lose her presence in the board gaming world, and we can look forward to whatever design she has planned in the future. Our final story is just a quick one and more for the anime fans out there. Kess has announced that they have gotten the board game rights from Toei Animations for One Piece as well as Digimon. Now, I bring these up because both of them have finally entered the tabletop marketplace already pretty well with their card games, with One Piece, as stated earlier in the video, now being considered one of the big five when it comes to the biggest TCGs. And it'll be curious to see what they do here. They already stated they have 2 board games I don't know like how they said in the plans or whether they actually have game designs for these properties as well as toys. Now, One Piece, I think there's tons you can do with. I mean, with something that lasted that long, you could easily just take whatever arc you need to form a game around that. Digimon, I'm a little bit more unsure. Do you focus on a different season? And how do you differentiate the Digievolution aspects from what is already in the card game? Regardless, if you're fans of either of these properties, this is good news. And in case you're curious, most of Kess games seem to be based on other IPs, mainly anime and video games. I have played only their Spy X Family Mission for Peanuts, I believe is the full title game, which did do well at the table with both people who are fans of the show and those who are not. Our biggest complaint being that the box was way too big for what came inside of it. But regardless, we'll see what they do with these two big properties and whether they can get all the fans of the trading card games to also pick up the board game versions. Now we're going to go on to game announcements. First, this actually aren't game stuff, but it's for game adjacent things. Ticket to Ride is celebrating its 20th anniversary, so there are tons of things in store. So far, we know there's going to be collectible coin and ticket, as well as a cookbook being made for the occasion. We also know that a new card game from Bandai is coming out based on Sandlands, another video game that is coming out from the artists of Dragon Ball. So if you are into that, you can check that out. That is slated to come out actually this September around the 27th. Then we have a new game from game designers Eric Lang and Ken Gruhl. This one titled Life in Reteria. This is actually going to be coming from Hasbro, and you'll be able to pick it up this April on the 22nd. Then this is more of a now being available in America from what I can tell, the Pagan Fate of Roanoke. This game is going to be distributed in the United States by Capstone. You can pre-order now or wait till Gen Con to pick it up. Then we have a new Unmatched, this one titled Slings and Arrows. This is actually all about William Shakespeare, and it comes with 4 heroes, Shakespeare himself, as well as Hamlet, Titiana, and the Wayward Sisters, with the sisters and Shakespeare actually being based on a contest to design your own heroes. This will be available June 12th. Then finally, Discworld is actually going to get a new RPG. Modifius has gotten the rights to both RPG as well as board games, but it seems that the RPG is now currently in the works with some board games to be coming alongside. The Kickstarter for the RPG, they said, should be out sometime later this year. But that is all the announcements we have, which means we're at the end of the news roundup. Let me know your thoughts on any of the news stories or any of the game announcements. I'd love to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. But for now, I'm Will, and I'll see you next time on the News Roundup.